Yeah. Mm. Well, it's unmuted. I don't know if the microphone is on. I'm just gonna stop everything. Yeah. Oh, I hear that. Mm. Well, it's unmuted. Okay. I don't know if the microphone is on. I'm just gonna stop everything. Okay. It's on. Yeah. The microphone is on. I'm just gonna stop everything. Okay. It's on. Yeah. Okay.
Hello, today I'm going to be talking about Ida B. Wells. Ida Bell Wells Barnett was born into slavery on July 16, 1862, in Holly Springs, Mississippi. Her parents were Elizabeth and James Wells. 2 years after Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, slavery ended in 1865. After the Civil War, James and Elizabeth Wells decided to stay on the farm where they always lived. Now freed slaves were allowed to attend school. Now they could learn to read and write and get an education. Ida loved school. She got good grades and read every book she could find. Ida's father would sometimes even let her read the newspaper. He would have her read it to him and his friends when they were over, because he wanted Ida to understand how powerful the newspaper could be. In summer of 1878, Ida went to visit her grandmother outside of Holly Springs. While she was gone, a severe epidemic of yellow fever hit the South. Yellow fever is a disease. Hello, today I'm going to be talking about Ida Bell Wells Barnett. She was born into slavery on July 16, 1862, in Holly Springs, Mississippi. Her parents were Elizabeth and James Wells. 2 years after Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, slavery was over in 1865. After the Civil War, James and Elizabeth Wells decided to stay on the farm where they had always lived. Now slaves could learn to read and write and get an education, when before that was illegal. Ida loved school. She got good grades and read every book she could find. Ida's father would sometimes invite his friends over to have Ida read the newspaper for him. Ida's father wanted her to see how powerful the content in the newspaper could be for her. In the summer of 1878, Ida went to visit her grandmother. While she was gone, a yellow fever in the south. Yellow fever is a disease that is carried by mosquitoes. Yellow fever because it causes the person's skin to turn of yellow. Sadly, both of her parents and her youngest brother died from the disease. When she got back from Holly Springs, she overheard some family members making some decisions to separate Ida's siblings.
Change the slide.
Okay. It's so good.
No, I asked you if you could do it.
I can do it. Just hard. Keep going, and I thought you wanted me to stop. If it's okay, remove the thing. Hello, today I'm going to be talking about Ida Bell Wells Barnett. She was born into slavery on July 16, 1862 in Holly Springs, Mississippi. Her parents were Elizabeth and James Wells. 2 years after Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863, slavery ended in 1865. Ida loved school. She got good grades and read every book she could find. Ida's father would sometimes invite his friends over to talk about how they were still badly treated. And he would sometimes ask Ida to read the newspaper so that she would understand how powerful that the written words could be on the page. In the summer of 1878, Ida went to visit her grandmother outside of Holly Springs. While she was gone, a yellow fever epidemic hit the South. Yellow fever is a disease that is carried by mosquitoes. It is called yellow fever because it causes a person's skin to turn a shade of yellow. Sadly, both her parents and her youngest brother died from the disease. When she got back from Holly Springs, she overheard some of her family members making decisions to separate her siblings. Ida thought, how could they do something so drastic? So she decided, so that none of her siblings would be separated, to support her siblings and work as a school teacher in Memphis, Tennessee. Even though she was only 16, her aunts helped lower the hems on her dress and put her hair up to make her look older. During her leisure time, she worked as a journalist going by the pen name Iola. At the time, most Black people were given equal rights with white people until white people passed new laws in southern states known as Jim Crow laws. This made it hard for Black men to vote, and it also caused segregation. Black children weren't allowed to go to the same school as white children. After 2 years of teaching, Ida's Aunt Fanny offered for Ida and her two youngest sisters to move to Memphis with her. Ida jumped at the chance of leaving Mississippi. In Memphis, she and her friends went to plays, concerts, and church. They also joined a reading club called Lyceum. Lyceum had its own newsletter called the Evening Star. Then When the editor moved away, he chose Ida to take the lead role. On Friday nights, she would read it aloud. One Friday night, a minister came to hear Ida, and he was so impressed that he asked her to write a column for his weekly newspaper called The Living Way. Most women would write about marriages, children, and running a household, but not Ida. She wrote about how badly some white children were still treated. During this time, Ida worked at a school just north of Memphis. She would travel a train to get there. Though there was segregation on the train, Ida decided to ignore the law. When the conductor came by, he told Ida to go to the train car for Black people, but Ida refused. She told him she had a first-class ticket and she was allowed to sit there. The conductor and two other men had to drag her out of the train car. So instead of getting on the train car for Black people, she got off the train, went back to Memphis, hired a lawyer, and decided to fight back against the railroad. The judge agreed that the railroad had been wrong. The judge ruled and decided that the railroad had to pay $500 to Ida. But she never got the money, so she decided to write about what happened in the news article. The article was so popular that other newspapers across the country reprinted it. Then in 1889, she became known as one of the country's few Black female newspaper owners and editors. In her articles, she would write things like, Black people should not always be loyal to one political party over another. After a while, she was given the nickname Princess of the Press. Ida enjoyed working at the free speech office. To make enough money, she would often take the train to places such as Mississippi, Arkansas, and Tennessee. There, she would persuade people to buy her newspaper articles. Then, while she was gone, she heard some terrible news that 3 Black men had been killed. One of those men were named Thomas Moss. Him and Ida had been close friends. Thomas was a letter carrier and delivered the mail to the free speech office. He also would hear news while was on delivery route and tell it to Ida so she could take the scoop and put it into her newspaper article. Thomas and 2 other Black men named Calvin McDowell and Henry Stewart all ran a very successful grocery store known as People's Grocery. This made many white people angry, especially a man named William Barrett. Barrett owned a grocery store across the street, so he organized a mob of people to destroy People's Grocery because he felt like business was being taken away from us. So
Just messed up the whole video asking me what do you
I didn't know what I was supposed to do.
do.